bonus show. You undersold that, Chris. This is a fantastic show.
Yeah, a bonus is a good thing, right? I thought that was a good word in itself.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to start Monday night. Like, we've not obviously gone into it and told you who the guest is. If you don't know, you're in for a real treat.
I imagine they do. People are quite savvy on the old social medias with our group. But yeah, it's brilliant. And we're going to get into this very quickly tonight because we don't want to waste too much time waffling on. The one thing to note from last week is the scandal of Goodreads. The review scandal seems to have been, fixed, Chris. People have their 4 and 5 star reviews back, which is a wonderful thing. So well done for sorting that out. Hello to Miss Ruby Hart. Nice to see you. And it says, we like a bonus show. We do indeed. And Monday often sucks, but we're trying to make it a little better today. So I'll reply hello to you in the chat there. Chris, so let's do our beer token book promotion. I think we're running out of our Bison Beer little sort of sponsoring. It's lasted kind of 3 or 4 shows now, so we're going to run to an end of that very soon. But Bison Beer have been wonderful to sponsor us for this segment of the show, so thank you for that, and please do check them out. So tonight's Bison Beer token book promotion, you'll see running across the bottom of the screen, and Chris will read that out for you now.
Yeah, and I forgot I was doing this, so I'm just going to check. But our Bison Beer token book promotion is Digging 2 Graves, and we have actually read this book, and there it is, by the wonderful Linda Rayner. If you haven't checked out any of her books, this is the second in the series, so maybe don't start there. Maybe start with the first one. Absolutely phenomenal series. If you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you will love Linda's work. So, Digging 2 Graves. This is what some people have said about it. The book definitely explores issues of vengeance in a unique way, and the author's descriptions and action sequences are amazing, and I'll second that as well. So yeah, please check out the authors who support the show. Linda is absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, if you're into Buffy the Vampire Slayer or anything in that nature, you will definitely enjoy her book, so please check her out.
We really do want the indie community to support each other, and we know the struggle of trying to sell a book as an indie author, so perhaps if you want to read something different or just give a book a chance, then support the authors that support our show, because it means the world to us. So check it out. So tonight's show, let's get on with the guest and bring her on, because we're very up for this. So she was a secondary school English teacher, a folk singer who then wrote songs for BBC children's stories programs, as well as writing plays. And in 1993, the words of her television song "A Squash and a Squeeze" became a book, and then in 1999 the Gruffalo was born, and I'm sure you all are aware of that story. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on tonight's show Julia Donaldson. Hello to you.
Hi. Hello.
How are you doing, Julia? It's absolutely wonderful to have you on the show, and we're very grateful, and we hope you've had a great day.
Yeah, well, I've not ever done anything like this, so I'm intrigued.
Yeah, well, it can go two ways, I imagine. But for those people that are watching, and I imagine there are a lot of you, especially parents out there, that will know these stories. And this is a prime example. This is a little collection for my little girl's bedroom. And there are so many books here right now that so many people will know. So, it's probably a very familiar theme. So thank you so much, Julia, for being here. What we'd like to do is go back in time and find out just why writing became something in your life, and where that led on to writing children's books.
Okay, so is that the question then?
Yeah, please.
Well, I really used to want to be an actress. That was my big ambition. So I studied drama at university. And there I met a man who's not my husband, and he and I and another girlfriend, we went busking a lot in sort of like in the student holidays. The busking kind of led to the songwriting, really. I would write songs if we were in Italy. I would write a song about pasta in Italian. So then the songwriting led to the books, really. Very, the books came quite a long time later. I used to write songs for children's television, and then one of my songs, "A Squash and a Squeeze," was made into a book, as you said, in 1993. So it was all quite an organic process, really.
Wow. I mean, what was writing sort of almost parody songs, I imagine. Then, if you're writing about the things you were doing and the foods and the all of those sort of things, was that a hobby at the time, or was that something you were doing as part of a project or work?
No, it was my job all the time. I was writing songs for programs like Play Away and Play School and things, and I wrote a couple of musicals actually when I was in my 20s. So, no, it was very much a job, but I suppose at that stage I would have perhaps liked to do a bit more presenting, and somehow I never got into that. But then I did start performing the songs with my husband, folk clubs. And so on. So yeah, I've always done performing as well as writing.
So Julia, how do you go from writing about pasta and singing songs about pasta and being in Italy and it being amazing to then writing a series of children's books? Like, tell us about that transition, how that happened.
Well, as I say, one of my songs, A Squash and a Squeeze, which I'd written for children's television, I got a phone call from a publisher saying, could they make that song into a book? So I was then a published author, but of course I'd written the words of this book a long time before, so I didn't feel like a proper author. But that gave me courage to send some of my work to an educational publisher, and I would say to aspiring writers, that's quite a good market to try to get into, because they might just be looking for one book about penguins or something. They're not looking necessarily for an author that they can really promote. So I kind of got into writing a lot of. It was mainly retelling folk stories and writing little plays and things for school. So I became quite an experienced writer, and then a story that could have been one of these little plays. I thought, no, I'll keep that up my sleeve, and I wrote it as a picture book, and that became the Gruffalo.
Yeah, I read something about when you mentioned the Gruffalo, that originally you wanted it to be a different kind of animal or something like that, and then how did the Gruffalo come around, as in the wording of the Gruffalo?
It was going to be about a tiger. It's based on a traditional tale where there's a tiger, and nothing really would rhyme with tiger, so
I love that. So, Julia, I've kind of got this a picture of you at the end of your bed, for example, seeing this massive Gruffalo, or Zog there, or Superworm. Is that something that happens? Do the characters sort of come to you?
Not at all. No, not at all. I think people kind of get hooked on the characters. And actually, if you're writing a children's picture book, it's much more about the story. Okay, you've got your character, you've got your monster or your witch or whatever. Usually they could be summed up in 2 words, actually, 2 adjectives. You could say my witch, and Roman the Brim is scatty and generous. The Gruffalo is sort of stupid but scary, but you can't just think of you don't just dream up a character and write a story about. No, on the whole, maybe you have a character, but you've got to have a good storyline. I think that's really the most important thing.
Yeah. A lot of people say that writing children's stories is notoriously hard. There's some really famous authors that have tried to write children's fiction and make that transition. What is it about children's fiction that you think makes it so difficult, and what sort of advice would you give to people that are looking to go into it?
Well, I don't know if it's really so different from writing anything else, but obviously, I mainly have written picture books, rhyming picture books. I have written older as well, and I would say you've got to have a good story. Just the same as you've got to have a really good story if you're writing for a line of duty or something. You've got to have your twist and so on. And also the language. Try to really good picture book. So important what it sounds like, because it's going to be an adult reading this story, bedtime perhaps, to children. So everywhere's got to sound good. So it's quite a sort of concise form. It's not you mustn't ramble really, and that's the danger. Lots of people kind of send me but please don't. I don't want anyone to.
No more.
An agent. I'm not a judge. But people sort of send me this stuff, and often it's very sort of rambly, and it's got to be, very concise.
There's a lot of obviously illustrators that you work with, and I imagine it's a lot to do with your publishers as well. How is your relationship with them, and do you get much insight or input on how the graphics look?
Well, obviously, in choosing the illustration, the first, just how, deciding what illustrator is going to be the best illustrator for a book. Yeah, I would now get a lot of say on that, but I've got various partnerships, like with Axel Scheffler or Letty Monk, so, I kind of know when I'm writing a book if I hope it's going to be for one of them. If it's a new book, that isn't suitable for one of them, then a lot of thought goes into choosing an illustrator. But once you've sort of chosen that illustrator, and if they're happy, if they've got to like the story, I don't believe in breathing down their necks too much. Normally what happens is they'll read the story, they'll decide if they want to illustrate it. Then they'll be asked to do some character sketches. And I will get some feedback. If I really, really think the character sketch is totally wrong, I'll say. But of course, it's not going to be how I've seen the character. It's how they see it that matters. And you've got to be, you've got to be able to hand over and not breathe down their neck. They're not breathing down my neck when I'm writing. So that's
good.
So Julia, loose link there with you obviously talking about how you write the story. Tell us about that process then, from the original idea that you may have to the story being completed. How does that work?
Well, you might have an idea, like I'm trying to think. You might have an idea that you want to write a story about a character that lives at the North Pole and a character that lives at the South Pole, and somehow they're going to be pen friends. That might be an idea, but then
loads of people with their notes now.
Okay, well, please don't write this stuff because I'm still trying to do that. I haven't been able to. I think that'd be a lovely idea, a penguin and a polar bear, but that's hopeless if you can't then think, okay, they're pen friends. Who's going to carry the message? So then you think, okay, it could be an Arctic tern because they do fly from pole to pole. Yeah, what's the message going to be? And it can take a long time to develop it. But once you have thought of a good storyline, which I haven't for that one yet, that's all happening in my head, and I only would start to write the story when I really know what it's going to be, and particularly what the ending is going to be. Because my editors have said to me, often a story will be, sent in, and sometimes they'll go, oh gosh, this is better than I've read. Wow, this is really good. Oh, what's going to happen next? Oh, and it falls flat. So the next step is, like I said, develop it in my head, and then there's all the blood, sweat, and tears of actually writing it.
Yeah, I like the idea of, this has been said before by other authors we've had on the show. When people have writing advice, they kind of want to know techniques perhaps, and often it's get that process in your head and really work it out and visualize it first, and it's a really good piece of advice for someone getting into writing.
It's good, and I think actually you have to do that if you're writing a joke, don't you? You would say an Englishman, an Irishman, and a Scotsman went into a pub. Okay, what's going to happen next? And with a picture book it's very much like that. And I think sometimes people could use that advice when they're writing longer things, because sometimes you can read a book that's so well written, but you almost feel like every sentence has been put in a bag, tossed around and taken out, and no sort of structure. So to my mind, the plotting and the structure is very important, but you don't want to see that it's been plotted and structured. It's got to be seamless.
Yeah, definitely. Julia, what has been your inspiration for your writing then? I mean, are there children's books that you used to read that kind of reflect in your work, or is there something that inspired your telly perhaps? What was your story behind that?
Well, I think I liked a whole lot of writers, but the ones that have probably influenced my own writing I would say that Edward Lear has been a big influence, because my granny used to read me all the Edward Lear poems, and I love the Jumblies, and the Jumblies, they went to see in a sieve, and that's sort of, I'm crazy. Why would you go to see in a sieve? Everyone's saying the water will come in, but you just go for it, you do it. And I think that the sort of crazy quest has influenced, particularly a book called The Snail and the Whale, and also just the language, the sort of, it's nonsense language, but it's very lyrical and very musical. And then I suppose my other influences really maybe a bit more musical, more perhaps classical music, even sort of Schubert songs and things like that.
Love that.
The other question I've got, just sorry, Chris, jump in before you. Obviously, with writing fiction stories and big pieces of work, you have beta readers who kind of read that sort of fiction. How does that work with children's books? Do you actually offer to children to see their reactions, or does it normally go through adults as well?
What I more do is I give it to my husband to read aloud, because it's going to be the adult who's reading it aloud.
Yeah.
And if he trips up over, some of the words, if he doesn't put the stress where I'd intended it to be, then I'll probably go back and rewrite those lines, because you don't really want to write something which people only realise after the third reading. Oh, that's where I've got to put the stress. You want it to trip off the tongue. So I don't tend to try them out on children, really. No.
Yeah. That's impressive. I mean, I guess that is a key to writing children's books, because if the parent loves the books as much as obviously we love yours, we're going to go back to that story and read it, kind of regardless if our child is, if they're young enough probably to have a say in that, we're going to go back and read it ourselves.
Yeah, sorry, I don't quite.
No, I'm just saying it's a great idea to obviously master the story for an adult to appreciate, because we're likely to go back to that story more than the child would.
And then it's the adults, actually, if you're writing for young children, even for older children, it's often the adults who are buying the books as well as reading. So it is important to appeal to the adult as well as to the child. But I'm not really thinking about that. I'm sure all writers probably say this too, but I want to write something that I'm happy with. I suppose just the same, if you're making a birthday cake, okay, it's got to feed so many people and it's got to have so many candles. But when you're making it, you're actually trying to make it the best cake ever. You're not thinking necessarily about who's going to eat it. So when I'm writing, I'm not really thinking at all about the audience. And then that's the other thing. The book might turn out older or younger, somewhere older than that. But then that's up to the publishers really to market them for either older or younger children.
Wow. Yeah, I love that, Julia, the idea of it being a cake in essence. So if I take you back to your very first cake, when you mentioned before you've made your book, you approached a school that is attached to publishers, a publisher that's attached to schools, sorry. How are you feeling in that very moment where your first cake is about to go out and be tried, and then how do you feel now, like, with obviously all the success that you've had along the way?
Well, I've never lost touch with that. I think everyone's had the difficult times starting out, and I've had times because it wasn't books, it was songs before, and I would be always contacting different producers, and if they didn't get back to me or they rejected my songs, I could be on the ground beating my fists on the floor, so I haven't forgotten what that feels like, and but then luckily I've had that experience of pinching myself and jumping about with joy, that when you finally make it.
So there's obviously something that we're going to talk about that's coming up that you're working closely with the BBC now, the BBC Maestro, which is a writing children's picture books kind of course with yourself. For people who are into writing, studying what you're doing and want to follow in your footsteps, can you talk to us a little bit about this?
Yeah, well, this course, it's one of a whole series of courses on BBC Maestro. It's actually following the footsteps of, there's an American similar thing called Masterclass, where they have top professionals in various fields of life. So it could be a cook or a writer or a sports player, whatever. And they're imparting their sort of pearls of wisdom to anyone who wants to follow their course. So BBC Maestro are starting the same type of thing. So they've already got, I think they've got Pierre, oh, let's get this model like that cook, famous cook. They've got Jed Mercurio, who wrote Line of Duty, talking. He's done masterclasses about, writing thrillers for television. I think we're going to have Tim Rice talking about, writing lyrics for musicals. So they approached me and said, would I do one about writing for children? And I said, yes, if it's just, I just wanted to concentrate on the picture book writing, even though I've done other things. So my course, it is for aspiring writers, and it's taking them through every step from the initial idea through to, I'm being brought another glass of wine by my mother. Taking them through, from, like I was saying earlier, that, your initial vague idea through to developing the plot, the characters, the villains, but particularly the language and the patterning of the story. And then I've actually involved, my agent. And one of the lessons, I'm talking to her about what sort of thing she's looking for, because it's very important to find, either an agent or a publisher. So I'm talking to my editor in another episode, and she's talking about what she's looking for. And then I talked to Axel Scheffler, my best-known illustrator, and we're talking about that author-illustrator partnership. So I hope, it does kind of explain, as far as one can, the whole process.
Yeah, Julia, that sounds like an amazing opportunity. Was that something that when you were asked about it, you immediately thought, yeah, I know how I do this and I know what the process is, so I can easily explain that? Or was that something that you thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to reflect on this for the first time?
Yeah, a bit of both, really. My agent actually saves up all the requests for every Wednesday. She sends me, anyone who's requested, can I be patron of a charity? Could I judge a writing competition? Could I do this? And, 9 times out of 10 or more, I say no. So this request came through, and it was a huge thing, obviously. But immediately I just thought, gosh, that sounds really challenging and interesting. It's not just being asked, where did you get the idea for the Gruffalo, the usual sort of, sorry, probably wasn't. But I did think about it. And what I did was, I collected all the picture books in my huge collection together, and I asked loads of publishers to send me their 5 best picture books from the last 10 years. And I got books from America, and I just, like a university lecture, I suppose, planning a term's worth or more, a year's worth of seminar. So I just knew it'd be challenging and interesting for me, as well as hopefully for people following the course. And it was, and it took a very long time to prepare. It's 6 hours worth actually of material. Wow. But you don't have to do it if you subscribe. It's all in little bites, I
think if you're serious about stepping into this world of writing and children's books, then it's an absolute must. It really is. But I'm intrigued to know, because obviously that is designed to inspire people to write in the same way, similar way to what you do in the genre. But Axel, like you mentioned, is someone you've worked with a lot, and this is one of his own books here that we've got. It's also in Welsh, which is we live in Wales. So, is this something that came after working with you, or was this inspired by? It's
not really his. It says by Axel Scheffler, but the text is actually written in house by the publishers of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I really like that.
He's done books, without me, and I've done books with different illustrators. So, I think that's very healthy, actually.
Yeah. So, Julia, we have some staple questions that we ask everyone that comes onto the Writing Community Chat show. So we're going to move into them now. And the first one is, if you could take somebody else's character and make that character your own, which character would you pick and why?
Oh God, I wish I knew this.
This is the reaction that everyone gives us, so don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yes. Well, I've sort of done that in a way, but I've just been reading the Pippi Longstocking books to my grandchildren. And Pippi Longstocking, in case anyone doesn't know, she's a rather anarchic character. Like all best children's characters, she's more or less orphaned. I think her father's sailing the seas, her mother's died, and she's a bit outrageous. And so I have actually got a character called Princess Mirabelle, who comes out of a mirror, and she's a little bit modelled on Pippi Longstocking.
Love that.
It's nice, yeah. Okay, this is along the similar lines, and it's if you could change the ending to anything, and we'll open this up to TV, film, musicals. In fact, why not? What would you change the ending to, whether it's good or bad? Or what would you change the ending to?
Well, I can't really think offhand of anything that's currently on television, but when I was a child, my best friend's mother was a novelist, and she wrote sort of domestic chillers or thrillers. And I'd always see the manuscript before before it was printed. And one time, the book had a really unhappy ending, and I was in tears. And my friend might say, "What's the matter, Julia?" I said, "I don't like the end of this book." And so, when the book was published, she crossed out the ending that she'd written. She wrote a special happy ending just for me. So I have actually had that experience of changing the ending.
That's amazing. And now, as you've kind of evolved as a writer yourself now, have you thought back about that ending? Is that improved now? You kind of know more about the art of writing?
Oh, I can't really remember. Actually, I can't really.
It'd be interesting if you went back and actually looked at that and see if you changed your opinion.
It's true. I mean, endings are really, really important. I'm sure everyone would agree. You can follow a series or something, and then it's just it just dips.
Yeah.
I can't make
we do have some more staple questions, and these are a little bit morbid, so I apologise in advance for that. But the first one is, if you could resurrect an author to work with, on the condition that you then had to kill them, who would you resurrect? Who would you resurrect to collaborate with, and then how would you kill them?
I got to kill them. What do you mean?
Unfortunately, I mean, we could make it more child friendly and say you have to send them away on a cruise.
Yeah, that would be.
So you mean I've got to kind of pick their brains and
and collaborate with them, release a book with them.
There's a wonderful American writer of children's books, and he illustrated as well, called Arnold Lobel. And he wrote these really brilliant books about Frog and Toad. But they're so, they're really about human foibles. And so, for instance, one of the stories is called The List. And in that story, the Toad character is a comic character. He writes a list of things to do, like wake up, go for a walk with Frog, and so on. So he goes for a walk with a frog, and then his list blows away, and so Frog says, "Why, chase after them." "No, I can't do that." "Why not?" "That wasn't on my list." So he just sits there, and that's such an insight into the way we are, human beings are. And all the stories are so clever like that Arnold Lobel. He apparently was really ill as a child, and he had a lot of time off school just at home, and I think that's when he started dreaming up these stories, and I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think he's underrated in this country. He's still very popular in America. And he's written another book called Grasshopper on the Road. And Grasshopper, he sort of goes on the road and he meets these other creatures, like he meets some insects who are going, we love morning. And Grasshopper says, "I love morning too." And then, he's, "Oh, you can join our morning club." And then Grasshopper says, "Yeah, I like afternoons too." "What?" What? Anyone who likes afternoons and evenings can't be in our morning club. And that's so like people are. But they really appeal to children and adults. So I'd love to magic him back to life. I wouldn't kill him off again.
That's fine. We'll send him on a cruise.
Yeah.
The second sort of slightly morbid question is quite difficult, but it's you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your writing career. What would you be happy with? What is success to you? Now, obviously, you've had a lot of success, but people's interpretations of success, are very different. We've had some very different answers on the show.
Yeah, it's very hard. I think I would actually like my songs to get in them, because I started off as a songwriter, and done a lot of performing in folk clubs and things like that. And actually, recently we've just recorded some songs for a songbook, because I still write songs to go with the books. And I'd be sad if the songs just went into oblivion. So.
Do you play an instrument?
I'm not too, I just think, well, in the end, the Earth's going to be, on a planet won't last, the sun won't last forever. I don't think you can really plan to be immortal. I don't really even think about that too much.
Julia, do you play an instrument as well?
Yes, I play the piano. I do sort of play the piano. I mean, I used to play the guitar on our busking days. When I did a lot of school visits, I would always take my guitar along and I'd sing a squash and squeeze, and I'd make up a song with the children. But now I mainly play the piano.
Have you got any funny busking stories?
Busking stories? Yes. Well, when we were busking in Italy, we were probably in our early 20s, and we were singing sort of in the square in Italy, and then we noticed this robed figure on one of the balconies, and it was some African president who was watching us and sort of clapping. But then the police came along and moved, said, "Oh, you can't sing here, there's this important African president." And so we were a bit disappointed, but some young people who were around us said, "Oh, come with us on this boat to the Lido of Venice." And we went to the Lido, which is, another island. And they introduced us to this lovely man, Gianni, who ran a little a sort of lovely restaurant, cafe, club type place. And we became the resident singers there. And
wow.
Yeah, so we just never knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm sure the president was loving the music at the time. Just one more thing before we move on to the questions from the community then. The Woolly Bear Caterpillar is your next release. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, well, I'm really into nature and more plants, actually. I'm very interested in plants, but we're members of the Sussex Wildlife Trust, and we were on one of their outings, and they had what's called a moth trap. It's not a horrible trap that kill, it's just like
get you.
Moths. The moths sort of congregate because there's a bright light under some muslin, and then you lift the muslin up, all these different moths. And so I was very interested, and I asked one of the experts, "Are there any very dull caterpillars that turn into amazing, gaudy, brightly coloured moths, or vice versa?" And this nice man sent me all these examples. So the story, it's a sort of ugly duckling story, really.
Yeah.
They are real caterpillars. It's about a very humble caterpillar and some very boastful, gaudy caterpillars. But you can guess, what happens in the end.
Wow, that's
humble one is, turns into this beautiful moth.
I've got to say, I'm not a fan of a moth, but your story may change me.
Well, you would probably like this one because it's a garden tiger moth, and it's very, very beautiful moth.
That does sound fantastic. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to play a very quick video, and then when we come back, we're going to ask questions from the community. So if you have questions for Julia or for me or for Chris, send them in now, and we will answer them as best we can. So enjoy this video. Hi guys, I'm here to talk about the amazing Pro Writing Aid and how I wish I had this software in my first 2 novels. I'm writing my 3rd at the moment, and I really want to get it sent off to a real publisher, and this is going to make all the difference.
Yeah, if you want to get yourself agent ready, then this is definitely the tool for you. And it's got a really cool tool where you can compare your writing to somebody else's, so you can compare your work to Stephen King or Paul Hawkins. Yeah, really test yourself, go to town. It's fun.
It is fantastic, and if you click on the link in the description of the podcast or the YouTube video, you will find a 20% discount affiliate link, which will help us out and help yourself out. So please check out Pro Writing Aid today. Yes, I do love that video, Chris. Go to town. Okay, so guys, if you've got questions, send them in. And I do have one recorded earlier from my daughter, Julia, who was a big fan of yours and she wanted to ask a question. So I'll play this video and then I will read you the question if you do miss that. So here it is.
Julia, this is my favourite. Why did you write Superworm?
Superworm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. Well, the illustrator of that book, Axel Scheffler, he's really, really good at drawing bugs and insects and, little creepy crawlies. And in a lot of my other books, there were these little bugs which weren't mentioned in the story. But I just thought, I must write a story bringing in some of these sort of insect characters. And then I also thought, never actually written a superhero book.
Yeah.
So it's those two ideas coming together, really, that inspired Superworm.
It's fantastic. I'm sure she'll love that.
But Superworm's going to actually be the next, Christmas animation. And they're busy making animation.
I think that's the new. I think Julia Donaldson is the new Michael Bublé. That every Christmas we're going to get a recitation of a children's story animated. Fantastic.
Love it.
Yep. So let's have some more questions then. What have we got? We have a question from Anya. She says, if you did busking again for fun, would you have a different theme or style?
I suppose now, because I've written so many songs, I'd sing more of my songs. When we used to go busking, we sang a lot of Beatles songs. We sang songs from the musical Hair. We sang songs from Salad Days and Oliver and musicals and so on. I think if we did busking now, we might be singing the Superworm song or, the Gruffalo song or whatever. Yeah, but I'm very happy to take requests.
Do you have any favourite modern musicals?
Any favourite? Sorry,
modern musicals.
Not very modern, really. No, I think my favourite musicals are still things like Fiddler on the Roof, My Fair Lady. Yeah, and that dates me, doesn't it? I'm not very au fait with most.
I like that. Chris has got a child.
I do have a child that's just randomly appeared. So, have you got a question for Julia, TJ? Show her your book. Is that your favourite?
Highway. That's my favourite.
Oh, so what's your question about the highway rat? You've got to ask a question now, mate. We're live. What's your question, buddy?
I wanted to know why Julia used a rat for this story.
Oh, why did you use a rat for the story?
Why did you use a rat for Stairway?
Really good question, because it was just going to be a story about a highwayman. But I thought I'd choose an animal, and you want an animal that's a bit of a baddie, I suppose. But I thought it'd be really weird if it was a fox or a wolf riding a horse with their legs sort of dangling, and that didn't feel right. So I thought a rat would be good, because they're kind of quite bad, but they could perch on top of the He's doing the same thing. Yeah, when children ask questions, they will the question, then as soon as you say the answer, they're not ready.
That's a question to you.
Yeah, I mean, he can't hear the answer, but I'll tell him. I'll let him watch that back.
Brilliant. Okay, so another question from the community. Thanks, Jody. It says, is there a particular book you wrote because you wanted to educate children about something you believe is important, or do you prefer to write for fun escapism?
Well, definitely I mainly just write what I want to write, and I don't want to preach at all. But there's one book, Freddie and the Fairy, and I wear hearing aids, so I have a hearing problem, and I did want to actually teach people not to mumble, not to cover up their mouth, not to turn their head away. And I thought I could do that in an entertaining way, because the fairy mishears all the little boy's wishes, and she gives him the wrong things until he learns not to mumble. So I think you can, if you want to teach something, you can go that way, but I think you need to make it funny and entertaining, not be too earnest.
Yeah, That's a great answer and a great question. And thank you. Halo's got a question, and it's not very specific, but she said it's from her son. Who would win a dinosaur battle? Out of who? I don't know.
It's not like multiple choice. Then
No, there's no multiple choice. That's a very blunt question. Halo?
Well, the only book I have actually written a book about dinosaurs, and it's called The Dinosaurs. I've written 2 books about dinosaurs, and I got one called The Dinosaur's Diary, and that's about a very small dinosaur called the Hypsilophodon. But that's kind of a small dinosaur. I don't think that one would win a battle. But the other one, Tyrannosaurus Drip, this little dinosaur in that book wins against the T-Rexes, not by being big and strong, but by being very clever. So I think that's the way to win a battle. Really. It's the same as in Gruffalo. The little mouse is much smaller than Gruffalo, but it's the mouse who's the winner. So you don't have to be a T-Rex to win a battle. You could be a very small, clever dinosaur.
So wit beats the muscle, and that's another Halo.
Brain over brawn. Right?
You definitely.
Always, yeah, definitely.
Let's have a little look. Anything else before we finish up? Okay, Jodie says, what was your favourite bedtime story as a little girl, Julia?
Well, if anyone can remember this story, please tell me, because I'd love to track down the story. There was a book that my parents used to read to me, and it was about a lion looking for a companion, and the lion kept getting taunted by these various animals, and met these animals that were a bit like elephants, but they were more like Salvador Dali creatures, and I think they were called the chittergongs. And I've looked this, I've googled chittergongs and lion, and I just can't. This would be back in the 1950s. So if anyone can locate that story, I'd be eternally grateful.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll get on it, definitely. We'll find somebody who knows where the chittergongs are.
Chris, is that siren in your background?
As always, mate. That's why I just muted it.
I mean, we'll tweet that out and say, look, you find this book for Julia, but please ignore the sirens in the back of Manchester for Chris.
Yeah, just sent the police off to find the chittergongs.
Fantastic. Couple more questions and then we'll finish up. So Julia can finish her mad day of promoting. Sophie, hello, and says, I've just written my first children's book. First of all, congratulations and well done. It's called When Mr. Bumble Came to Stay. What's your top tip for first-time authors that you wish someone had told you?
Well, I don't know, Sophie, if your book is a picture book or not, but I would say, even if it's supposed to be illustrated, don't submit it with any illustrations. Don't get your best friend to do the illustrations, because the publisher's got to like your story on its own merits, and they will find someone, to illustrate, probably someone quite famous to illustrate it, so that one of the pair is well known by booksellers. So a lot of people think, you need to submit to a publisher a story with illustrations, and you don't. And I think my course, my Maestro course, goes into a lot of things like that, what kind of trying to, quell misconceptions like that. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I suppose I was lucky because my first book had been a song, and I was approached. So, in a way, that doesn't apply. I think as well, just read a lot and go into bookshops, go into libraries, see what's out there, because you want to. While you don't want to imitate other people, you don't want to write something that's way off. Lots of people write. Lots of older people tend to write sort of stories they remember when they were little, like Larry the lamppost or something, and that they probably wouldn't really get in there.
There's just one question off the back of that, Julia. If you had not been approached whilst writing your songs for that book to have become made, do you think you would have gone down that route?
It's really interesting. I don't know. I was more into writing songs and music. I might have written some more musicals, actually. I might have gone down that route. I just don't know, but I feel it's just been very organic. And now it's lovely because I'm kind of doing a mix. I'm doing all the things I was an editor for a publisher before, so I'm still working a lot with publishers and editing the texts. And I was a teacher for a bit, and I'm visiting schools, and and I had these acting ambitions. I'm sort of performing at book festivals. So maybe it would have just happened. I'd have ended up in the same place, but by a different route. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you ever hear back from any of your teaching days, your students or your co-teachers? And I used to work with Julia Donaldson.
I'm not really in touch. I wasn't a teacher for very long because in those days, you didn't really go on work. You tended to have your first child, then you had your second child. And when the second child was at school age, that's when you sort of went back to your career. But by that stage, I was already writing. So I never went back to teaching. I loved teaching though.
Yeah. There's a big connection between teaching, especially teaching English, and writing. There really is. Chris, for example.
I think really teachers could be brilliant writers because they have to entertain these children all the time. But I guess they're just so busy, and they probably had it up to here with children and they don't want it. But I think I've met some really inspiring teachers, especially when I was a writer in residence in Glasgow. And some of those teachers would make amazing writers.
We've got one more question, and we'll let you get on. And this is from Lythe, and it says, Phantom of the Opera ? Another vague question.
I don't really understand the question because I'm not seeing Phantom of the Opera.
Are you a fan of Phantom of the Opera?
I haven't ever seen Phantom of the Opera. The nearest I've been to Phantom of the Opera is when I was recording some songs with some professional musicians. One of the professional musicians was a double bass player, and he played the double bass in Phantom of the Opera, and he played it every night for about, 20 years or however long. And we said, every night's different. Every audience is different, he said. So that's my own Phantom of the Opera experience.
I do often think about musicians who have played, are still going from perhaps 20, 30 years ago, playing the same songs, and ever wonder if they get bored of playing those songs.
Well, he
must have.
Evidently didn't, this guy.
Yeah. Okay, so there's just one comment back from Sophie. She said, "Thank you, Julia. So lovely to hear your advice. You're definitely a huge inspiration to me. I was a teacher for 15 years, and it's helping me write. So thanks for those comments." Yeah.
Well, good luck, Sophie, with Mr. Bumble.
Excellent. Guys, we're going to wrap up. Julia's had a hell of a day promoting her Maestro class, which you definitely need to look into. Please do. We'll leave links to that where we can. And look out for a new book that's coming in towards, I think in July. Is your new book out, Julia?
Oh, no, I think it's later. It's in June.
June. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this month. Yeah.
And where can they find your work, Julia? Where can they go to find all that stuff?
To find
all your work and your
well, I've just updated my website, so you could go to my website. And actually, on my website, there's a storytelling section because during the lockdowns, I've been doing storytelling broadcasts, and the illustrators do wonderful illustration slots. But that's called Julia Donaldson and Friends, so you might like to go there.
It is indeed.
Brilliant.
I did have a look at your website, and there are some fantastic stories in there. Not just your writing tips, for example, but there's a really cool section about your youth and being a child and what you were into there. It really is worth looking into. So thank you for that. Chris, were you going to say something?
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Julia. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Our children loved it. Apologies for the little one in his pajamas coming on to ask you a question, but
how old is he? How old's your little one?
He's 3, and he's got a younger brother as well who is 6 months old nearly, and he'll be reading all your books as well. So, yeah, brilliant.
Again, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. It's been wonderful to see you all chatting and entertaining and engaging with us, as always. We will see you on Wednesday for another show, and we'll be back to our normal schedule. We've got some great stuff coming up. Some new features, a new show for you guys that you are going to be very much into. So please do stay around for that. We'll be sending out invites for you guys to join with that. So very exciting. And again, as always, look after yourselves. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye bye.